But at the same time, Cele says one of the reasons crime is not proactively combated and foiled is because in some areas the number of residents is greater than that of officers allocated to serve them. But the minister has commended the cooperation demonstrated by communities in helping police apprehend criminals in order to foil evil intentions. Cele says the SAPS is doing all it can to address a shortage of police forces in areas where the numbers in police stations and personnel hugely surpass citizens. The minister was addressing the media at the shooting crime scene. All right, let's discuss this further now. And the drivers of gun violence in the country. We're now joined via Zoom by David Bruce, independent researcher and Institute for Security Studies consultant. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. 10 people from the same family shot dead in the early hours of this morning. And just yesterday, 4 more were gunned down. That is 14 people in the space of 2 days in KZN. Communities are calling this particular incident a massacre, and rightly so. What do you make of the latest spate of mass killings?
Well, let's start off by saying that this killing is quite exceptional. This incident is quite exceptional. Last year in July, we did have the incident in Gauteng where 16 people were killed in a single shooting. But it's not a common occurrence for 10 people to be killed in a single incident. In fact, in terms of the information that I'm aware of, I would say that there probably haven't been any other shootings of this scale for several years. So, just in terms of the scale of the number of deaths in this specific incident last night, it is quite exceptional. Having said that, it is also then part of a pattern of killings in the country, but specifically in KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal is the province which is most affected by these, what people are sometimes calling mass murders or, multiple murders where more than one people are killed in a murder incident.
David, perhaps let's look at the comments that were made by Cele, during that briefing. One of the reasons he says crime is not proactively combated and foiled is because in some areas the number of residents is greater than that of officers allocated to serve them. What do you make of those comments? And I'm sure this is concerning.
You see, I think, while there is some truth to what the minister is saying, I think we need to go a bit beyond that. This is a kind of standard type of explanation that the police are falling back on as, one of the reasons for deficiencies in policing. And, but in many ways, what we need is an overall strengthening of the policing system. In many ways, what we continue to rely on is a framework and approach to addressing our policing challenges that hasn't changed in upwards of 20 years. There's a need for a kind of program of strengthening of the policing system. Increasing police resources might be one aspect of it, but there needs to be a much more sophisticated response. There needs to be a much more coherent and systematic, policy response from government to the overall policing challenges in the country.
Let's talk now about, how easy it is for criminals in this country to access or have access to guns. And in some instances, firearms that should not ordinarily belong to South African citizens. They should actually be in the care of law enforcement authorities. How concerned should we be about, just how many criminals in this country have access to guns? And in some instances, we know that these guns have somehow been stolen from the very police stations that are supposed to be protecting South Africans.
Yeah, so that's correct. And so what's happened, and it seems, the figures in SAPS reports indicate that the level of firearm violence in South Africa is, another aspect of the crime problem that has surged quite dramatically. So SAPS statistics indicate that firearms, firstly, that murder has increased dramatically, but it seems that increasing use of firearms is playing quite a big role in that increase in murder. So, for instance, when I'm talking about an overall strategic response to strengthening the policing system, we need to look at, problems of this kind. One of the problems, which is clearly linked to the problem of firearm proliferation, is the problem of corruption in the police service. And so we don't have a coherent and effective response to the problem of police corruption at the moment. Again, it's one of those things where, to some degree, we're relying on a repertoire of techniques for dealing with our problems that are now updated. And so there's certain aspects of the policing system, including mechanisms for addressing the problem of police corruption, that need to be strengthened considerably.
One of the things that the minister did indicate, during his address to the media is that one of the criminals that were caught in this crime was actually a known criminal in the area, and he was in fact shot dead during this incident when police were apprehending 3 of the suspects. He said these words, and I am concerned about whether or not, as you speak about strategic responses by police, if indeed the surveillance and the intelligence of police should not in fact be beefed up, because if he was a known criminal, I would imagine community members have complained about him. Should this then not have been better addressed? Not necessarily this case, but we've seen instances of this nature where community members are complaining, about known gangs and known criminals operating in their communities.
Right. Well, I would agree with you in relation to questions about the intelligence division of the SAPS. And so, if we're talking about this kind of strategic response to strengthening the policing system, then that would be one aspect of the SAPS that we would need to focus on. And, what we know, at least in public domain, is that the intelligence division has been characterized by chronic problems. And we haven't seen any evidence that those problems have been resolved have been addressed in a purposeful way. But the other thing this, of course, raises is questions to do with the detective division of the SAPS. And so, again, we could ask, because, repeatedly when these issues are raised with, for instance, the minister or the SAPS, they are treated as a kind of numbers issue, a resources issue. But, we need to ask, for instance, what kind of recruitment strategy are we following at the moment? Is that giving us the kind of policing personnel that we need in order to have establish the kind of crime investigation capacity that we need in this country? Because if we're dealing with, say, forms of organized crime, we need to have quite a sophisticated crime investigation capacity, and it's not clear that our police human resources function is providing that to us right at the moment.
All right, David Bruce, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. David Bruce is an independent researcher and consultant at the Institute for Security Studies, coming to us there.